So, you want to play the new Sparking Zero and finally show bro that you are better. In this guide, I'll go over which controls to use, the defense mechanics, attacking mechanics, tips to get better, and explain the dreaded DP system. So if you are completely new or have already started but need some help, don't worry, I got you. Let's start with the classic or standard controls debate. Both are viable. If you have played previous Tenkaichi entries and want the nostalgic feel of rolling the sticks during clashes, or to feel like a kid again, and you are a veteran, definitely go for classic. However, with how expensive controllers are nowadays, do keep in mind that doing so could lead to stick drift in your controller, so if you are like me and can't afford getting a new controller every month, probably best to stick with standard controls, as it changes rolling sticks to mashing the square button. On top of that, in my experience, defense is easier on standard input, as it simplifies some of the buttons, such as giving perception its own dedicated button, which we'll discuss later on. Next up are the assists. The game aims to help new players be able to enjoy the game from the start by turning on some of the accessibility features, while some of them are actually helpful, like Recovery Assist, which helps you with snapping out of a knockback without mashing so much, and Combo Assist also is quite useful, as it helps you with the window of the inputs to keep the combo going. However, some options you have to turn off, such as Revenge Counter Assist and Guard Assist, as they do put you at a disadvantage. They could mess up your counters since the game prioritizes performing a block rather than a counter, even if your timing is spot on, or even interfere with auto dodge mechanics like UI Goku's. So I personally recommend playing around with them and see what works for you. But don't worry, I'll make sure you understand everything you need to succeed in the game. If you are interested in the story mode of the game, you can find that in the Episode Battles tab. The game lets you play as 8 different characters: Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Future Trunks, Frieza, Goku Black, and even Jiren. I won't give you spoilers though, so explore these on your own. Just look out for this green symbol in the corner of the episode. This is an indicator that you can activate a what-if scenario by completing a certain challenge, and they are definitely worth it. Clear the episode normally first, and then go into that episode again. In the pause menu, there will be an option to see the challenge required. For example, it might tell you that you must defeat the enemy quickly, so just take them out as fast as possible, and that will set the what-if timeline. It is definitely the best part about the story mode. Next, let's talk about online and ranked real quick. If you are not interested in ranked, don't worry, there are casual online matches. But before loading into any online match, make sure to set the connection to 4 or 5 only. Otherwise, it will be unplayable. There's essentially 2 types of battles: single battle, which is just a 1v1 without any limits on who you choose, or a DP battle, which is built around destruction points, or DP for short. They are essentially a way to limit players from using 5 absurdly powerful characters on the same team. You get a limit of 15 DP points, and each character has a different cost, so make sure to build around the characters you like, or be like everyone else and just run SSJ for Gogeta. There's a ton of good characters at lower cost, so I recommend you try out anyone you like and see how they feel. And a quick tip: if there's a character that can transform, for example Goku, instead of picking him at Super Saiyan Blue, select his base form, and that lets you have him on the team for cheaper, and also stronger, because he gets the buffs from transforming. You can't go wrong with Goku. Fusion warriors are all strong. Teen or Future Gohan. For lower cost characters to fill the team, consider Videl or Yajirobe, and androids are also quite fun to play. But for you to go into ranked, we need to get you up to speed on the mechanics. We'll start with the basics. You can pause the video here and screenshot it for the controls. Let's start with the UI. The first green bar is your HP, and the little squares to the left are how many bars of HP you have. Directly under that is your key bar. That's responsible for using your moves and skills, dashing and countering. Charging key to the max turns the bar into a glowing purple color that is called Sparking Mode. You are faster, can drag and dash infinitely, as well as extend your combos, or of course landing your ultimate attack. That's called the skill bar, and the number you see next to it is how many skill counts you have. They are crucial to success in this game. Managing these skill points can make or break your match, as they let you use your more powerful counters, utility skills, and even transforming or fusing. So make sure to save them for the right situations. Next to it, you'll see 2 icons. The yellow one is your switch meter. As long as it's not glowing, you can't switch characters, while the blue icon is your transformation meter. Now let's talk about transformations and fusions. By using a skill point, you can transform. But how do you do that? you press up on the D-pad, then the corresponding button on Standard, or press the right stick and flick to the character you want on Classic. And the same applies to fusions. You need to have the two characters on your team, and they have to be from the same saga as well. So Super Goku can't fuse with Saiyan Saga Vegeta. And then the same buttons for transforming, but you press L1 or R1 for the fusion you want. Knowing when to charge up ki or when to use the skill counts can be tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. The tip that I will give you is that whenever you have an opening or push the enemy away, use that window to charge your ki. But to understand when to utilize skill counts correctly, you first must master your defense. So let's dive right into it. First is your normal guard, which you use by holding R1 on standard controls or holding circle on classic. This is your generic guard to protect you from normal attacks and minimizing damage taken. It's a good idea to keep your guard up. A lot of newer players forget to use it and stay open, and by moving the left stick up or down, you can guard high or low. But don't worry, that's just your first defensive option. The game actually has a lot of different ways to counter attacks. The first counter method is your high-speed evasion, where you vanish behind your opponent by timing your block as you are about to be hit. Make sure not to mash it and try to time it correctly. With the standard combo, don't worry about evading the first few hits, as it is quite difficult to hit that timing. Instead, wait for the heavy hit. When he vanishes and is about to elbow you from behind, that is the perfect opportunity to vanish out of it. Learning this timing is crucial, as it is the same for every single character in the game. Meaning, once you mastered it, you have it against every single enemy. Then, the next hit is your second opportunity, and is where it becomes a Z counter. Right when he knocks you away and follows up behind you, that is the time for you to vanish it. And if your opponent is good and comfortable with the timings, you enter a battle of who can vanish the most, and then whoever wins has the perfect chance to get a combo going. Z counters cost ki though, so make sure you always stay charged up in case you get caught in a combo. The next method is called Perception, which is a stance you enter by holding circle on standard controls or circle and triangle on classic. The character ready themselves to block attacks coming their way. But be careful that holding the stance does slowly deplete ki. Against a normal hit, he blocks the attack and punches the enemy back. So it's an easy way to counter an enemy rushing at you if you can see them do it. There is also an upgraded version. Super Perception has the same input and costs 1 skill charge. Remember how we said earlier that counters cost skill points? This is the first example. Super Perception is used to guard against smash attacks and heavy finishes. Next is one of the coolest dodges in the game, Sonic Sway, which is a perfectly timed perception right before a rush attack lands on you. While guarding with R1 or circle, if you are using classic controls, try to time it just right that you add the perception as you are about to be hit with a rush attack. So while holding R1 right as you are about to be hit, you press circle or triangle if you are using classic, and that performs a Sonic Sway. Timing this move is quite challenging, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets. Landing a Sonic Sway is well worth it. Not only is it great to evade getting hit, but also drains the ki of your opponent and opens them up for a combo. So definitely practice it as much as you can. Not to mention, it looks awesome. Revenge counter is what makes it so the game has no true combo. It is an easy way to break out of an attack, but only works if the enemy is attacking you from the front. It costs 2 skill points, and to perform it, you just press the right analog stick on standard or double press L1 on classic. Right after your opponent uses a revenge counter on you, if you have 2 skill points of your own, you can use Perception to counter the counter. Deflection isn't efficient, as it does cost 2 skill points, and you can just dash out of the way if you want to feel like a total anime badass. You have to be in the air to deflect it, and all you do is hold Perception when you see your opponent using their attack, but be careful. Not all attacks are blockable this way, so it will take some experience to know when you can or can't use it. And keep in mind, you have to be flying to deflect it to the side. If you are standing on the ground, the character just tanks it and breaks out of it without the cool animation. Which brings us to the best counter method in the game, but also the hardest one to pull off. This is by far the most valuable counter to practice. It can break out of combos easily, can be countered by Perception, is free to use. Counterattacks, and is the only counter you can use while being hit from behind. To perform a super counter, you need to time it perfectly, and to perform it, you just press forward and square on both inputs right before the hit lands. and it will break out of it and send the enemy flying, but we'll get right into attack and I'll teach you the best way to approach it. Before we go into more advanced tips, because I'm mixing both beginner advice as well as things to start working on early to avoid building bad habits, let's dive into the basic stuff. Spamming square does an auto combo, which is the standard string of melee attacks. This is not recommended, however. It is better to learn other moves and combos. For example, after hitting square a certain amount of times followed up by triangle performs different strings. It goes from square once, then triangle, to square 4 times, then triangle. So once you picked out your character, try out the different variations and see what feels good and what works for you. Also, after hitting your opponent with a few melee attacks, they get knocked back. You can either press triangle to vanish behind them for a follow-up, or press circle to teleport above them and slam them down, which is a great way to set up an attack, but we'll get to that later. Movement is another very important area to focus on. We'll keep it simple though. First, let's talk about sidestepping. When you are close to your opponent, by moving the left stick to a certain direction and hitting X, you do small side steps, which are great for throwing off the enemy rhythm and being unpredictable, and you can get out of the way of some attacks as well. Next up are drag and dashes by holding R2 and X on standard and L2 and X on classic controls. You can fly around quickly, but you can take this a step further and do the best setup move in my opinion. By holding down L2 and double pressing the X button, you instantly dash behind your opponent. But this move requires high key, and not only is a great tool to close the distance quickly, but also it puts you behind the enemy, which gives you a great opening for a follow-up. All of these moves are important, but don't sleep on key blasts. This is a common thing beginners overlook. The point of key blasts aren't to deal damage. They are used for interruption. If you see the opponent charging up, you can interrupt with a key blast, or after hitting them with a few melee attacks, you throw in some blasts to throw off their timing. Next up, let's talk about your moves and skills. Each character has 2 unique skills, 2 super moves, and an ultimate move. The skill moves are usually either a status buff or a defensive utility, and they add a lot to the character's overall performance. Don't worry if you don't know what they do, as you can simply pause the game and go into the controls explanation to see what each move does. They cost skill points, however, so use them with caution. The way to perform these moves is holding down the key charge button, so R2 for standard and L2 for classic, and then it will show you the input for each one. And don't worry, it's the same buttons for every character, just different moves and skills. The first most important thing to make sure you don't fall for is people who say the game has true combos. Unlike other fighting games, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero does not have true combos. Revenge counters exist, and almost every attack in the game has a way to get out of it. The only thing that comes close is taking advantage of animation locks to punish the opponent. So, for example, if you land a string and then knock the enemy down, and they bounce up and down, you can use that window to follow up. Or if you see them get out of a knockback, the moment they do it, they are locked in an animation as well. Or if they just launched an ultimate and you dashed out of it, they are stuck in it, so you can take advantage. So keep an eye out for those details, and whenever you see an opening is when you follow up. A common mistake beginners are making is just mashing square and doing an auto attack, which is the easiest combo to get out of in the game. Instead, only attack with intent. Remember that when you are playing against another player, he's looking out for patterns and habits. So make sure to mix it up. Don't always go for the same combo. Don't chase them every time you knock them away. Don't spam blast moves and rushes. Mix in movement, delay follow-ups, throw in different combos, utilize key blasts. Make sure that you are always keeping your opponent guessing and messing up their timings. Keep your combos short, but make sure they hit hard. You want to get in as much damage as you can with as less moves as possible. A combo I like using is getting in a few hits and sending the enemy flying. Then as soon as he pushes away, I hit circle to slam him down, and then wait a split second and use my rush attack to get in some damage as soon as he gets up and is locked in the animation. This isn't a guaranteed move, but has a high chance of working. Another great option is doing a grand slash, which you do by pressing square, then left analog down and triangle on standard controls, which is a low sweep to lift up an enemy, then grab to throw them away, delay, and use a ranged attack. Or alternatively, after the throw you use that window to charge up key. Use all these options in your game and try to keep the enemy guessing, and I promise, you will see results. But by far, the most important tip I can give you guys is to try and be smart with how you use your super attacks. And Ultimate, when I first started, I used to spam them and miss all the time. And that was a huge problem, and a ton of damage you are leaving on the table. So try to wait for an opening, or catch the opponent mid-animation, and make sure you can land the attack. Now, sometimes it happens that you and your enemy use the same attack, which causes a clash. Clashing in Sparking Zero is a quick time event, and there are 4 different types. The first one is the classic Beams Clash, and you have to hit the triangle before it reaches the end. Some people say simply pressing it as fast as you can also works, but I'm not entirely sure. The second type of clash is a QTE, where it prompts you to press a sequence of buttons as fast as you can. The third type, which I don't see often, you have to hold square to fill up the bar and try to stop it on the yellow line and keep it in that zone. The fourth one is when 2 rush attacks clash into each other and prompt the clash we all know and love. You have to hit square as close to the ring as you can, then either mash the square button on standard controls, or spin the sticks as fast as you can on classic, and it doesn't get more nostalgic than that. And that concludes this guide. Watch this video as many times as you need. I'll add in timestamps so you can get back to any part you want. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has been an amazing experience, and anyone who loves competitive fighters can enjoy this game, as well as anime fans and DB fans alike. This game is not easy, and has a lot of sweats, and the ranked experience is basically you fighting the same characters over and over, which does get boring. But the game has a lot to offer, and I think it was well worth the excitement and wait. I hope you all found this video helpful, and thank you all for watching. If you would like to see a list of the 10 strongest in the game for ranked play, be sure to check out this video next. Bye bye!